One of the big mistakes that I see people make when it comes to influence is they're so focused on, did I get a yes or did I get a no? And they don't realize that a lot of times influence kind of follows levels of gray. And we've got to be able to navigate that ambiguity and work with people where they're at and help them navigate the risk levels that they're willing to take. When you come up with a new idea, you're asking people to change. And unless it aligns completely with what their current goals are and what they believe is possible, you're going to have to work on it a little bit. So what I recommend is going in with some options. I like to start off with what I call the Ferrari option. I'm a car person, so you're going to hear me talk about cars, but this is kind of your ideal scenario. You're going to put all the bells and whistles on this. This is if you were to do things without any kind of roadblocks, what's the budget you would spend? What are the resources that you'd put in? How quickly would you get this done? What are the greatest amount of benefits that you see coming out of this? You want to talk about from this perspective first, not because you're kind of hoping and gambling that they're just going to say yes to everything. I mean, it's great if they are, if they're ready, but also because you're trying to expand their imagination because the Ferrari version or the ideal version that I'm talking about should be the vision that you have. It is the greatest kind of detailed version of what you want to accomplish. And you want to set the stage that that is what the goal is, but it's okay if they're not ready for that level. So next, what I have in my back pocket is, okay, what's the next level of something that's a little luxury, maybe not as much as a Ferrari, but still has some of those bells and whistles. If we're going into that, there's some of the bells and whistles. We've trimmed off some of the things that maybe are nice to haves or can be added later, but not necessarily need to haves. But I'm leaving in some of the things that I think are really great and cool about this idea that I'm proposing. Now, they may still push back and say, this is a little bit too much. So then I have kind of a mid-range of what I'm going to propose. And I'm usually thinking about that reliable car that is really good on the road, a comfortable drive, is going to get you to point A to point B, may not have all the fancy bells and whistles, but you're also not missing much. You're getting the job done. And so those are great cars. They're good, solid ideas. And so when they say yes to this, you're getting to move forward with what the foundational pieces are and probably the most critical pieces to your idea. Now, if they don't go for any of that, what I do is I go for what I would call the bicycle. All that means is, what, they're not really ready to move forward with something. And so I'll either ask for the one thing that I can get to just kind of get the ball rolling, or I'll ask for another conversation in the future. Now, ideally, what I'm hoping for is that through the conversation, we collaborate and we come up with something that I couldn't even imagine. So it's almost like out of this world ideas. This is the rocket ship level where we're hitting stuff that without their minds and intuition on this, we wouldn't have come up with this idea. So, a couple of things. Always go in with that clear vision of what it is that you ultimately want to accomplish. Have some alternatives that lower the risk. That risk can be either financial, that could be brand risk, that can be kind of scope risk. And then also just be prepared for what's that one thing that's maybe easy to give you to get the ball rolling on things. And worst case scenario, that you have a chance to have this conversation at another time if they're not ready to move forward with it at this time. Remember, influencing change isn't always like flipping a switch. Sometimes you've got to be able to build those relationships, and it takes time for people to digest, especially when your ideas are very different than what they're seeing out there. So if you're an innovator, if you're somebody who really drives that future, you've got to pause and you got to ask yourself, do I want to bring people along with me? If so, let me learn that skill of being patient and bringing people along for the ride and meeting them where they're at.